Hi. Thanks for joining our Pines and Plains Library channel. If you want to be notified about what we post, hit the subscribe button down below and you will get notifications sent to you about our new content. And here we are. We are here with Donna. You have been to our library before.
I
You were here,
did.
yeah, in March, right? March?
January?
Okay. Oh, time has flown.
February, perhaps? It was before. It was
Yes, it was.
pre everything.
Yes, before the world changed.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to have you back, and we're gonna chat. So I've just recently finished reading one of your books, and you have a lot of books out there, but I just finished reading Double Jeopardy, and it was an awesome book. It's a nice romance. It's refreshing. It didn't have any of the you know um, steamy side of things, or however you want to say it. Um, but you write your books and they're clean. They're you could have a junior high kid read them. You could have a mom read them and just use your imagination.
Yes.
Do you do that purposefully, and I hope that you intend to keep doing it that way.
Yes, I do. I prefer to write that way. Um, Mostly, I guess it's because that's how I live. Although I'm married and very much in love with my husband, and we have a great romantic relationship, I don't want it outside the bedroom door.
Right.
So I don't see why anybody else would want to see it either. And okay, so I don't want my love life outside the bedroom door, and I don't want anybody else to see my love life. And we all know how it works anyway, so we don't
Mhm.
need right pages of description, I figure. And there is a very large audience of readers out there who want clean romance, clean historical, whatever it is.
I
So
agree.
I would say that I cater to that audience purposely, just because that's what I want to read. I don't want to read about it in anybody else's books either. Yes,
So
and I think I mean I know that there is an audience out there for that kind of writing, but yeah, it's good if there's a warning on my book that this is a clean, sweet romance that has none of that. And I've never
right.
had a complaint from anybody, even from readers who read the other. Uh, I have not had any complaints that it wasn't there. And it's not only about the level of romance, it's also about whether there's cursing or not in the book.
Hmm.
Because for me, I characterize clean as having no sex on the page and no cursing.
Hmm.
And so the worst words you're going to find are something like rats or snap. I tend not even to use words like gosh and golly and darn it, just because that offends some readers who think that's coming a bit too close to what the actual cuss word might be.
Yeah, it's a substitution.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's good. So your publisher and everybody, you have no pressure to change that.
absolutely not. Smitten Publishing, Smitten Romance is very much they're seeking clean, sweet romance.
Okay.
And so they don't want that. And but I've also published with Barber Publishing, Barber Books, and they're looking for the same thing. And even before I was publishing with either of those two Christian publishers, even in my own independently published works, I did not have any of those things because, again, that's not what I want to read, and frankly, it's not how I live. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sounds great. So okay. So I just said I read Double Jeopardy. And that, I don't want to give the story away if there's people that haven't read the book. So it's kind of set in the Wild West kind of time frame. Um, it is that town based on Cripple Creek? Is that what was the inspiration for that town?
I actually set it for Durango, Silverton area.
Okay.
So it's pretty close.
Okay.
A lot of those towns down there are very similar. I didn't choose Cripple Creek purposely because at one point, maybe people don't know, but Cripple Creek was actually vying to be the state capital,
Hmm.
and its population was almost the same as Denver's. And so it would have required a bigger town around that time than I wanted to use. So I made up the town, but it's set in that area. So it's not any particular town, just a Wild West town.
Right, right. But I figured there was some town that you had in mind that started, and that you imagined from.
Yeah.
But and that's interesting to know that the reason that Cripple Creek was not chosen. Yes, it was a bigger town. Um, that's a good point.
Had a lot more vice-filled businesses going on Main Street than I really wanted in my story.
Hmm.
Uh, and I guess the other thing is I had seen a drawing of Durango from around that time period, and it looked like it was fairly small, fairly simple. And so I like the area. I had been on a research trip down in that area, and I typically make up my towns anyway. That way I can have my streets going whatever direction I want. Very rarely do I actually set a story in a real place. A few
Hmm.
times I have.
Right. Well, because I assume, if you're going to write about his history, you're going to take a real town or a real character. There's some ethics involved of what you can do.
It is, it's tricky. And, a lot of people may not know a lot about what Durango looked like, say, or Cripple Creek, in the 1850s, 1860s. But
Hmm.
for those who are aficionados of history, they will know. And
Hmm.
there's nothing worse than getting called out by a reader for some little, some mistake that you made. Even such as maybe the town wasn't even called Durango back in that time period, for example, because a lot of communities changed their names over the years, depending on the political winds, depending on the river, depending on other things that were going on at the time. So there is that advantage of making up my own town. And I guess, with regards to using a real person in the story, you can do that so long as you're not putting them somewhere where history records them as being somewhere else.
Hmm.
That makes
Hmm.
sense. So,
Hmm.
like if I was writing a book set during the Second World War and I wanted to have Winston Churchill in there, I probably couldn't have him anywhere outside of London for the entire length of the war because he stayed there. And I mean,
Right.
it's well documented. I couldn't have him travel to, Durango during the Second World War. It was just unlikely.
Hmm.
Um, and also, you want to be true to the character, so you wouldn't have him do something in a fictional book that was or her out of character. Um, for that. So I wouldn't have, let's go back to the Winston Churchill example. I wouldn't have Winston Churchill be a teetotaling non-smoker, for example, in my book because that's not who he was, and it's well documented,
Hmm.
that was not how he was. So there are things you have to be careful of. Yes.
Yeah. And it's nice because your fictional book might get somebody's attention for whatever era of history, and then they might go read some more about that era, and maybe they get where, okay, now I like this historical fiction kind of genre, and they can get into it a little more. And that's, I'm in a library. That's great if I can get a junior high or a high schooler interested in that era, and they get going, and then that gets me where I recommend your books more. So
Yes,
it
yes.
gets
And
everybody going.
well, and authors are thrilled to hear that. And we love to hear from readers who say, I didn't know that about, that
Hmm.
time period. But I've gone and done some research and yeah, it's great. I'm really enjoying it.
Hmm.
I will give you an example though of using a real life historical figure. And that is a book that I released in May. It's called Kate. And
Hmm.
so it was set in the 1850s and was actually based on a real life stagecoach robbery.
Okay.
Now, the history surrounding that stagecoach robbery is spotty, to say the to say it nicely. There's not a lot of history, although they know it had happened. They know how much money went missing. They did recover it all, but well, it was a fairly big portion because it was a large gold ingot that they did not recover. So in my book, Kate, my hero was the brother of one of the guys in the gang that robbed the stagecoach. And towards the end of the book, I actually had the leader of the gang track them down. He was going to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
That was his goal because they had the brother of the guy in the gang had told the police where he thought they might have been hiding out
Mm-hmm.
from information from his brother. Now, I felt I could do that because, first of all, that was very much in character for the leader of the gang to seek vengeance on somebody who, turned in the rest of the gang. But the other thing is that it was not well documented. He was on the run for some period of time and was all over the western part of the country as the law chased him out of one place and into another. So it was easy to include him in that book as an actual figure on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened to him on the pages of my book may or may not have happened. We don't know. We do know that later on he returned to the area of the stagecoach robbery. Theoretically, they think he was looking for that last missing ingot because everything else had been recovered,
Mm-hmm.
and he was caught. And in the real life story, he was being moved from one jail to another, and a bunch of vigilantes caught up with the stagecoach and took him out of it and beat him up and hung him before he ever
Mm.
went to trial. So that's on the pages of my book, not as part of the story, but as a newspaper account that they read after the fact. So, but hopefully, I don't want to give away the ending of, what
Yeah,
happened
no.
with him on the pages, of course, but, hopefully it was true that it could have happened. See, and that's
Right.
really all we have to do is, you know, that it could have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I wrote down that book title. I'll have to go check that out. It sounds good.
Yes. It's part of a series that released this year called the Prairie Roses collection. There
Okay.
are, depending on the year, this year there were 4 books that released in that collection by 4 different authors. Last year I think there were 6, and I think she plans for some every year. And I've actually subsequently written a second book called A Pink Lady Thanksgiving, which takes
Mm-hmm.
my hero and heroine from the Kate story and takes them to where they were headed in Oregon City, Oregon. So there I'm using a real city. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
using plat maps and things from that time period. And I'm using
Okay.
street names and so on. So that's a little bit different for me. But for that, I had to have the street name. So I found a map of Oregon City, Oregon, from that period, and set it there in that town. So it's kind of book 2 of Kate's story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then this A Pink Lady Thanksgiving is part of a collection again called Thanksgiving Books and Blessings.
Okay.
And so they're all individual books in that it's not like a collection of 5 or 7 or 8 books in one volume. They're all
Mm-hmm.
individual. But yeah, those are available there at Amazon in
Okay.
ebook and in print.
Okay. Well, great. All right. And Prairie Rose collection. And then what was the second collection? I didn't get it written down.
Thanksgiving Books and Blessings.
Okay.
But I'm calling A Pink Lady Thanksgiving the book 2 of um, my Kate series is called Oregon Trail Mysteries. So A Pink Lady Thanksgiving is book 2 of my series. So it's
Okay.
all interwoven and mixed up like a good
Okay.
omelet.
Mixed
Okay,
down. Or
great.
well, do you have all this on your website?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Okay. And so let's tell everybody what's your website. I think we're going to say that later, but let's go ahead and let them, they can open up a second tab and be looking at this stuff while we talk.
Okay, great. So my website is www.hisstory, HISTORY,
Two S's
through
or one S?
one S. So
Oh,
it's,
okay.
yeah. a play on his story and
Oh, okay.
history. So history, his story, history through THRU theages.com.
Okay.
And so there's a link there where they can sign up for my free quarterly newsletter.
Okay.
The next one will be coming out the end of October, and I'll absolutely include the link for this
Okay.
discussion. And also, if they are an author, and it doesn't matter if they're published or not, they can sign up to guest blog for me on my historical blog.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, great. Well, so hopefully people are now over looking at your website while we chat. So let's keep up. So we just talked about the ethics of writing, about characters and towns, um, and I absolutely love that you do your research and you stay true to that because again, it helps a budding enthusiast to get on the right track. Um, so okay. So my next question, do you, I think you already answered actually. Do you want each book to stand on its own or be dependent on the brothers and sisters in the body of work? How do you frame all that with your writing?
So I write each book to stand alone. And in this case, for example, Double Jeopardy, that was written as a standalone, but I won't be at all surprised if there's going to be subsequent stories. Usually what happens is after I finish writing a book, I have fallen in love with the characters and I
Mm-hmm.
just want to write more about them. And that's usually what happens. Kate originally was a standalone. And then when I had the opportunity to join in the Thanksgiving Books and Blessings collection, I thought, well, I really love Kate and I would love to have her have a second story and probably a third. Um, so, um, so that's why I made her the heroine and and Tom the hero in that second story as well. I think readers really like series too. When they find characters that they like, they want to keep reading about them. It's
Mm-hmm.
like television, right? I mean, we find a program that we like, that we really like the characters, and we just want to keep watching it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I am. I love reading a series. I'm going to tell you this: when I would go to the library, or when I do go to the library, I look, because they're all filed alphabetically in the mystery section in my library, and I look to see who's got more titles there, and I'll start there, and I'll work. But I start at the first book in the series if I can get it and
Mm-hmm.
work my way through. I won't read anybody else's stuff until after I finish reading that whole series as much as I can.
Yes, yes.
And
And so at our library, we'll get little dots on the bottom of the book, and so all the pink ones, we'll just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so then you can keep track of which one am I on.
very nice, very nice. Yes. Otherwise, you got to look. I tend to look at the copyright date, unless it
Right.
says on the cover, which is what I do with my books usually. Once I've got the series going, I'll say book one, book two, book three, so
Oh,
people,
nice.
yeah, see that. So
I like that. Yes, it saves me the pink dot. Awesome. Okay. And then what kind of person are you writing for? Are you looking to get that junior high budding enthusiast into history, or are you looking to who is your audience, your intended audience?
well, a lot of that depends on my characters. So in different books, my characters are of different ages. And so that's who I try to visualize sort of as my ideal reader. Most of the time it's women, although I've had a number of men who've read my books and they really enjoy them because they say they're not
Mhm.
too mushy. Uh,
Right.
yeah. And
Well, and your male characters are masculine. And
yes.
that's coming hard to find.
Yes. And I have been, I've had several people who said, "Boy, you nailed that guy's dialogue, right?
Hmm.
It sounds like a man. It doesn't sound like a woman trying to write what a man sounds."
Right.
So, yeah,
Okay. Well, good. And so in that I guess we haven't really said it outright, but you write different genres.
I do. Yes.
So,
So, under my name, Donna Schlachter, I write historical, and some of it is going to be historical suspense, historical mystery, which is how I categorize Double Jeopardy, because there is a mystery that they're solving,
mhm.
although there's romance in it too. because I think there's an expectation. There's going to be romance in every book, pretty much,
You know,
right?
even in the darkest mystery, there's some sort of little
There is some kind of
romance in it.
tension there going
Yeah.
on. That's right, because that's how life is.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's what I write under my name.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So
and
the
then
historical fiction, historical
historical
mystery.
mystery, historical suspense, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
historical romance,
Okay.
some of that will depend on the publisher and what they want a little more emphasis on or a little less.
Mm-hmm.
And Smitten Romance was happy to have about, I think it's about 50-50 between the romance and the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I tend to talk about it as being a historical mystery.
Yeah.
Um, and then under my
And then
pen
that
name,
broadens your audience too.
right, yes,
Yeah.
right, because there are some people who would think they'd never pick up a romance, and yet
Right.
they enjoy something that's touted as a mystery or suspense or historical fiction. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Colorado fiction is a big thing, amongst Colorado, and even just
Mm-hmm.
Western readers like to read about things that are set specifically in different states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Yep.
agree.
Yep.
I agree. And then it gets you on with me because I like that. I've been trying to interview authors that are from Colorado that are writing about Colorado because there's some ownership, and this is our state, and this author is promoting our state, and so that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, where do your ideas come from?
Oh, I don't know. They're just sort of in there, all jumbled around. But I guess I didn't realize I liked history. I never liked history in school, and I didn't realize I liked history until probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little less. I was talking to a friend and asking her what she was writing, and she said she was doing some research and getting ready to write a story about Pony Express, and it was in a collection that they were proposing to a publisher. And I just said to her, I'd like to write a story about the Pony Express. I knew nothing about the Pony Express, but she said, well, we've got all our authors, but if that changes, we'll let you know. And I thought, well, I better find out about this Pony Express. We have a friend who does the Pony Express re-ride in Wyoming every year. And
Hmm.
so I knew some little bit about it, that it wasn't fiction. It really did exist. So my husband and I actually started doing some road trips, and we traveled to northeastern Colorado up to Julesburg, and we went over the border into Nebraska there, and into Wyoming. We followed the Pony Express Trail, and the more I learned about it, the more excited I got. And then like a few months later, this friend called and she said, wow, she said, one of the authors dropped out. Would you really still like to join? And I'm like, yes. And I've got all this research and all these pictures. And I shared it with the other authors. They were very excited because most people don't get to travel to where they're writing about, that
Hmm.
most authors don't. Most readers don't get to travel to where they're reading about. So
Yeah.
to have actually been in some of these places was very exciting. So historical research has now become like, it's just wonderful. I love history within certain parameters. I tend not to go pre about 1850 or 1840, and just to keep it historic, I don't tend to come after 1960. Um, so that's my 120 years of history or whatever. Not that I'm an expert on anything, but I really do enjoy the research. I love visiting places and then looking at them and saying, now I wonder what kind of a story there might be here. I like asking people, like, what's your favorite story about this town or about this exhibit, or what's your favorite like if I'm in a museum, I'll say to the docent, what's your favorite exhibit in here and why?
Hmm.
I went to a visitor center one time and I just said, do you know of any old cemeteries in the area? That's another thing I like doing, traipsing through cemeteries. She said, you've got to go and see the Three Sarahs. And so she told me this really, really sad story about a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter who all died on the same day. And their gravestones are one by one by one in the cemetery. They're right next to each other. And and then the husband, who would be the father of the daughter, or the husband of the daughter rather, he's buried about 75 feet away because they died because he made a bad choice, and they all got swept away in a river, and he was the only one survived. So that was like, oh, I gotta write a book about that. So I haven't done that one yet, but you listen to people tell you these stories of things that they find interesting, and pretty soon, like, I just hear the voices start talking to me. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's amazing. I really like that. There's there's a lot of people around here that are very interested in our the history of our town, and it has a history. And yeah, that same kind of just drawn in that you're describing is, I love sitting there listening to them while they're all having their coffee because
Yes.
it's interesting.
Yeah. One of the reasons I like to go to cemeteries, I go just to get names, really, to find names of people, like whatever time period I'm writing in, like what would have been the common names in that area.
Mm,
But you also see stories in cemeteries, sad stories, where I was in one recently and there was a headstone for the mom, and to the right of that, like 3 days after the mother died, the baby died.
mm,
And when I went to the left of her, of the mother's headstone, there were three other infants buried there beside her. But there was no husband's headstone. And so it made me wonder what happened that, well, first of all, that he did not get buried beside them. Did he remarry? I looked to see if he might have been somewhere else in the cemetery, because that often happened. He would have remarried and um, would be buried maybe with his second wife. I wondered if there were any other children, you know, or I wondered if he had just left the area because of like four babies and a wife buried there, just too much to bear. So,
mhm.
there's a story there in that with some research, maybe I could find the answers to my questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, some tough people back in the histories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Oh. Oh. So how long does it take you to write a book?
Well, it depends on the length of the book. So I can write a novella, so that would be around 30,000, 35,000 words, around there. I can write that in a month. Now it takes me then I'll spend another couple of weeks doing the editing and revising and all of that stuff. Um, but for a full length novel of say 70 or 75,000, I generally spend about 3 months um, writing, just because it's so much bigger and the story needs to be thought out a bit more. There's usually a couple of other plot lines that are going on underneath, that kind of, I like to weave them all together at the end and have them all kind of come out into one
Hmm.
resolution at the end.
Yeah.
Um, but and if it's part of a series, it makes a difference, because then there can be plot lines that might be continued in the next book,
Hmm.
so you don't have to complete it. But so usually about 3 months for the longer ones.
Okay. That's that's pretty impressive. That's
Yeah,
that's
and it has
cranking
been a
it out.
busy year. Yeah, and it's been a busy year this year. I've written three novellas that have come out this year, and then I released Double Jeopardy in January as well. So that one was written and everything in the previous year, but came out early this year, January. And then of course I've had a lot of follow up from that, and um, the release stuff and so on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have kept busy while we've been having our unusual year.
I have, because my alter ego, who we haven't really mentioned, but she writes cozy mysteries, and her name
Oh,
is Leanne, Leeann Betts, Betts.
okay.
Yeah, so uh, she's written a full length, which came out in June, and a segue novella. I call it a segue because the one that came out in June was the last one of the series that we had been working on. And then I have a new one that comes out at the end of January, a different series. And so it connects the two series together.
Okay. Okay. And so
Yes.
so tell us about Leanne Betts. The cozy
Okay.
mysteries is the only genre there?
Yes. Well, she does write some suspense too, but right now she's just publishing cozy mysteries, contemporary cozy mysteries,
Okay.
again, that are sweet and clean,
Okay.
because that's how she is too. So at the beginning, when Leanne came on the scene, it was like the best kept secret that we were the same person. And then
Hmm.
eventually I just got kind of tired of people saying, wow, you guys look like you could be sisters. Yeah, well, Closer than that, even closer than you know.
Nice.
So now, I mean, even, I belong to a couple of different organizations, writers organizations, and they say, well, we're never sure whether we call you Leanne or call you Donna. And so, yeah, it can get confusing. Um, so the last book the last full length that Leanne wrote was called Risk Management, and it was book 12 in her Cozy Mystery series. So
Hmm.
since about 2015 or so, there've been two of those coming out every year. And then actually my heroine, who is a forensic accountant in that series, told me last December, or told Leanne, I guess, last December, that the next book will be the last one. I knew always that she would tell me when she was ready to be done, if that makes sense. And I know
Hmm.
some people are looking at me thinking, ooh, she hears voices. Yeah, when you're writing a book, you're going to hear voices. Um, and so Carly was very adamant that that was going to be her last book.
Hmm.
But so that was fine. I really struggled though with writing the last book. It took me more than a month to even get started on it after I was supposed to be writing it, because I really realized I didn't want to say goodbye to her. And
Yeah.
so I had to think about that a lot and think, how am I going to bring this to a conclusion after I had spent the last 18 years basically writing this woman, this character's story. And it was just like, I don't want to say goodbye. And so another author friend mentioned that her publisher had said, hey, you're starting a new series, why don't you somehow find a bridge? She called it a bridge novella. Write a quick little bridge novella. And she said, I don't know how I'm even going to do that. And I thought, a bridge novella, now there's the answer. So I actually came up with I had outlined that and had the whole plot of that one laid out before I ever started writing the last of Carly's books. And once I did, though, I was able to I just streamed right on through it. I knew
Hmm.
I wasn't completely saying goodbye, and it was much easier than to write the segue novella, which just came out in September.
Okay. And
And
what's the name of that one?
that one is called The Game is Afoot.
Okay.
Each title is going to be some kind of a paraphrase on famous fictional detectives' famous sayings.
Hmm.
So that was a Sherlock Holmes, and it includes old, rare, vintage books somewhere in there. And it's set in a bookstore in Edgewater, Colorado, which is actually a real place, but it's current day. And so it's much easier to see what's going on over there because it's not far
Hmm.
from where I am. So um, the second one, which will come out in December, is called Little Gray Cells. So for the Hercule Poirot fans, that's where that one came from, Agatha Christie.
Okay. All right. Now, and does Leanne Betts have a different website?
She does, and
Okay.
it's www.leanne, Leeann, Betts, Betts.com.
Okay. No dot between the names.
No,
Okay. Okay. So history through the ages for you, and then
yes,
Leanne Betts for the other you.
yes,
All right. All right. Sounds great. You are just one busy lady. And
yes,
I love that all so we've got the historical mysteries, suspense, and then we've got the current. So that's great.
yes,
And it's all just based on good stories, good characters, no questionable content on either author.
correct.
Okay.
Clean and sweet.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. I love it. Okay. So, for you personally, now we've heard about your writing, but for you personally, what kind of books do you like to read?
Well, strangely enough, I love to read historical and I love to read cozy mysteries.
Hmm.
I kind of cut my teeth on Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes, and just loved. And I speak of Sherlock Holmes like he's a real character. No, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes and the Agatha Christie books, just love them, and I've read them and reread them, and But I will read almost any cozy mystery so long as it's clean. Um, and I've read many. I've read like lots of bed and breakfast, knitting shops, tapestry shops, cooking, baking. The Goldie Bears one that's set here in Colorado and up in
Hmm.
Aspen, and you name it, I've probably read it. The Mennonite bed and breakfast one. I'm not very good with remembering author names, but Yoder is the last name of that main character who runs a bed and breakfast. Um, and yeah, almost anything. I'm happy to read it.
Okay. That's kind of how I read a lot of different types.
Yeah.
So good deal. So so we've mentioned just a minute ago you have kept quite busy during all this quarantine. Has life changed a little bit, or kind of stayed normal for you?
Pretty normal. Even pre-quarantine, Leanne was putting out at least 2 books a year in the series,
Hmm.
and Donna was writing at least um, 2 or 3 books a year. And then the Double Jeopardy one got picked up by Smitten Romance. I have many others that are written that have not been published yet. Although
Okay.
I have also published a few historical independently, so those they can see those on my website as well. Um,
Okay.
and Yeah, so one was set basically going through Echo Canyon in Utah. And I had done so much research for setting a Pony Express story there that I had all this extra research and came up with these characters. So and that's like a covered wagon uh,
Nice.
story for Christmas.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Well, so you're just working every day. Just like,
yeah,
are you sitting where you write your books?
I am. Yes,
Nice.
yes. So I share an office with my husband. He's actually across the desk from me right now, and
Oh, okay.
yeah. So yeah, this is where I work every day. Things haven't changed much. Pre-COVID, this was my office anyway. I was sitting here. I was writing most every day. I, Not that I write every day, but I write probably at least 4 days out of a week. I have
Okay,
some
that's a
time.
lot.
Yeah. Um, and So yeah, it really hadn't, life didn't change for us. We work from home and we still
Yeah,
work from home.
yeah. Well, so now I'm curious because so now I do some of my time from home, just because we have a limit on how many people we have in the library at one time. Um, so whenever I try to work from home, my I have cats. They're 6 months old, and they think that that's the best time to bat my hair and play with any sweatshirt strings that might have. So, do you run into this? Do you have pets at home as you guys are trying to work?
Yes, we have 2 cats, and one of them likes to get in my lap. He doesn't think that the keyboard means anything, that I don't really need that, and that there's always got to be room here for him. But unfortunately, the way I have my desk set up, usually when he does get in my lap, all you see is his tail flicking across my face, when I'm
Uh-huh.
on a Zoom meeting or something, or he'll turn his backside, to the camera, which is like really attractive. So, yeah. Or I have one that will sit here and he'll just meow, meow, and then he'll bat at my shoulder to get attention. And if
Hmm.
I don't pay attention, then the claws start to come out a little bit at a time on my
Oh yeah,
shoulder. So,
one
but
one little claw and then
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like I'm over here,
yeah.
But for the most part, they're not here because I'm here all the time. So they know they can come anytime.
Hmm.
So they don't feel the need to be, here. Like you, for example, you're not at home all day long every
Hmm.
day.
Right.
Right? So when you are, it's a big treat for them because
Yeah.
otherwise they're on their own. So yeah, mine
Yeah.
come in occasionally, but not quite so bad.
Yeah. So, but yes, they do entertain me, and it sounds like your cats entertain you as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and I imagine a lot of folks probably, when you're in your Zoom meetings, everybody's doing this, so they know if
Yes.
there's a tail going across or a kid
Hmm.
running across, then We
Hmm.
have lives.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. People are pretty forgiving.
Right, right. And you could probably, I don't know, do you have any tips on keeping focused since you've been working from home for, the duration of your writing career? Do you have tips to help people stay focused now that everybody's at home?
Well, like I said, I am a list person, so I tend to have on my calendar, like each day, the things I need to get accomplished, and if there's anything I want to get done in a particular time, or if I only want to spend an hour at something, I'll put it on my calendar, and it's for an hour. And I have learned that if I don't stop after that hour, then immerse myself, and then I'm behind, as I call it. I say that to my
Hmm.
husband a lot. Oh no, I've fallen like 3 hours behind because I spent too much time on something else. So he laughs at me because he says, like, you put it on your calendar. It's not like any place you have to be, and you don't have a deadline, so like it's on you, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but so for me, I just try to stay focused on the list. I
Hmm.
love checking things off, but it's very easy to be walking, say, okay, I need to stand up and take a little break. Oh, the laundry needs to be switched over. Yeah, okay, well, that's part of my break. Then I can't take a break and do that. Like, or, oh no, a cat threw up on the floor and I got to clean that up. And, but life happens. Laundry
Hmm.
needs to be done, and I don't want to have to be up at midnight doing laundry. So staying
Yeah.
focused is probably the toughest part of working from home, as anybody who's tried it during this time will attest. So many people have said, I can't do it. I'm dying to go back to the office. I'm dying to go back to my regular work schedule because it takes time. And I think it's just something that you have to steel yourself for.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, I've heard of other people who say, well, I set a timer and I say, I'm going to do this for an hour. And when I'm done, I'm done.
Hmm.
So maybe that works. Sort of it does for me, I guess. That's sort of what I do. I have it on my calendar. My calendar tells me, okay, now you're supposed to be doing something else. So
Oh, does it beep at you or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Nice. I'll have to get the calendar app that you're using when we get done here. All right. So do you feel like, well, I'm gonna get, I was gonna ask, do you feel like your physical surroundings impact or influence the book that you're working on? But you've told us that you do a lot of research and you go on trips. So I would imagine that those trips are what influences the book.
Yes. And I love when we go to a museum, for example, I will look in the gift store. That's always my favorite part of the museum is the gift store. And I'll look for a little book maybe that's about a specific thing, such as campfire recipes. And
Hmm.
see, a lot of times they'll have a little story in there with each one of these recipes. Or I'll look for a book that's maybe like a diary of somebody who lived in that area, a
Hmm.
firsthand account of what it was like to live there.
Hmm.
So I don't look for, a multi-volume set of books or something that covers, 100 years of history. I'm looking for something specific to that place. And you never know what you're going to find. Like I've, found things in recipe books that were like, oh, now that's really interesting.
Right.
Or, right, or in a diary um, about what they were doing or who they went and visited.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I really like museum gift stores, and especially for those free museums, it's a great way to give back to them.
Hmm.
Or if they charge a little small admission fee, then it's a great for that's how I look at it.
Hmm.
That it's a business expense, the same as if I'd paid to get into the museum. And so I always try to bring something back, not from every museum, but from most of them, some little small book that I can sit and read easily.
Hmm. Nice. Nice. That's a good tip because then that's a little nugget that you can put in your book. And
Right.
yeah, nice. So what's next, Donna? What's on the horizon for you? Do you have new stuff coming out from the publishers? Because I you have a couple.
Yes. So for me personally, I'm not under contract right now. I am involved in a proposal that's hopefully going to go into a publisher soon, about women from Pueblo. They're living in Pueblo in like 1920s, and they're
Mm-hmm.
involved in the film industry down there.
Oh.
Um, I, I have a friend who lives in the area, and she was doing some research, and she said like in 1920, Pueblo had more than 80 movie theaters. Who'd have
Mm-hmm.
thought, right? And so when you start looking into that particular topic, it is pretty fascinating. So, yeah, we're hoping that somebody's going to pick that one up. And Leanne, well, she'll have the next mystery in the mystery. It's called Mysterious Inc. Bookstore Mysteries. That's the new series set
Okay.
in Edgewater. And the main character is my previous heroine's granddaughter, now grown up.
Mm-hmm.
The previous series with Carly, the forensic accountant, was set back. It started in 2002 and ended in 2006. That was the setting, the time period.
Mm-hmm.
So now I fast forward the readers up to 2020, to contemporary time, and the granddaughter, who was a little girl then, is now an adult, and she has inherited a mystery bookshop in Edgewater. There isn't one there, so nobody needs to go looking for it, but there could be one there. So
Yeah.
that comes out the end of December. And Leanne has also just finished a novella for part of a collection with Barber Publishing, Barber Books. Um, and that one is about wedding planners, who live in Loveland, Colorado. It's contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
And there are four wedding planners, so there are four intertwined stories, of these four friends who work together as wedding planners, each with their own particular job within the company, and they all despair of ever getting married, um, because it just seems like they're always wedding planner and never a bride. So
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
bit of a play on the always a bridesmaid, never a bride, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I've read one of the other stories, and I just love it. I think it's going to be a great collection. So that one comes out in June of 2021.
Okay. So you've got just stuff coming. Stuff's
Yeah.
already in the mix. Stuff is rolling right out.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
And all of these are on your websites.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then
Yep.
obviously they'll be in libraries and then you sell through Amazon.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And when they're published by a traditional publisher, they'll also be available on the traditional publisher's website as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then is that linked on your website?
No, I think yeah, no, I think that just the Amazon link is on the website.
Okay. Okay. But if we Google it,
Yeah.
gotta love Google.
Yes, and I think even if you Google it or if you go to Amazon, then there's a link there to the traditional publisher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. You have so much to offer. When I first read your book, I didn't realize how many books you had out there. And then I was getting ready to do this interview and I'm going, oh my gosh, you have, you
Yeah.
know, tons of stuff. And I think I did like a little, the little fast step dance. I was like, oh, yay.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Between me and Leanne, we've published more than 30 books. I've kind of
yeah.
lost track. 30, 31, 32, somewhere around there.
Hmm.
Um, and then, like I said, I've written a bunch of books too that need some revision and so on. And then hopefully we'll find a home for them.
Nice. Well, awesome. I am so glad that I got a minute to talk to you. You have a lot of interesting books. You have a lot of interesting stories, and I look forward to having the rest of them come out
Yes. Thank you.
and we can read them more. So that is awesome. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to share with folks?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, to all the readers out there and all the library patrons. I mean, there were still, I get books from the library all the time, especially if it's an author that I'm not read before and I want to check them out. I think libraries are great for that. And so I just want to thank all the readers, all the library patrons, because honestly, if we don't have readers, then we might as well be writing to a brick wall. Although
Hmm.
sometimes it can feel like that. But I also encourage the readers to write reviews, and if the author provides contact information like through their website or in the book, jot them a line and say, "Hey, I love this," or "I hated this." I mean, we don't care. I don't care what a reader says to me, just as long as I know that they read the book. And so I just want to encourage that yeah, absolutely leave online reviews at Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, Barnes and Noble, wherever you can find the book listed. That just blesses authors I can't even tell you how much that blesses us.
Okay, that's a good note. That's a good note to me. I will have to start leaving those reviews too. So, all
Yes,
right.
sometimes Amazon, it gets persnickety and will limit you if you haven't bought enough stuff in the last 6 months or whatever. Probably during this COVID, most people have bought way more than enough through Amazon to warrant being able to leave a review. But absolutely,
Hmm.
BookBubs and Goodreads, you don't have to buy anything. You can't buy anything from them. They're just review sites.
Hmm.
But you can also find some other great authors. You know, if you follow one author, and you can follow authors on all of those websites, but if you follow one, then they'll suggest other authors who write similar books.
Hmm.
And that's really nice. You can discover new authors that way.
Yeah, yeah, I like Goodreads. It's a good way to keep me going. And then if I go to read a book that I've already read, I go, oh, I already read this book.
Tells you.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us again. I know that you were down here and we had a great time chatting when you were here in person. So, thank you for coming and joining us. And we will put this up on our YouTube site, and hopefully we can get some more people interested. And again, your websites, we can say his story through the ages or history through the ages to spell it that way, .com, and then leannebetts.com.
That's right.
Did I get
Thank
both
you.
of them right?
You did. Thank you, Becca.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us, and I hope you have a great evening. And I will let you know when this gets up and going.
Great. Look forward to hearing from you again.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks for watching our video. I hope you loved it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and you will get notified when we have new stuff.